I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I'm Andrew DeWolf.
And I'm Brianna Jones.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew and Bree to like musical theater. And today we have an extra super special guest. It's actor, writer, comedian, and all-around awesome human being, Maggie Mae Fish. Yay! Applause. I don't even want to waste time. Like, you decided what we're talking about today. So I'm going to let you introduce it. What are we talking about today?
I picked this very specially because of my mother, who loves The Wizard of Oz. I remember being a young child watching the film and my mom watching with rapt attention, watching me watch the film. This is the first time anyone saw color, and telling me the backstory of like all the actors and and all the like the backstage like lore. And it was the first time like someone showed me a movie, talked throughout the movie, and talked about like how the movie was made.
So The Wizard of Oz is a movie musical with music by Harold Arlen and lyrics by Yip Harburg, based on L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz. It is directed by five-ish people, technically, but the main credited director is Victor Fleming. It premiered at the Strand Theater in Wisconsin on August 12th, 1939. It was a critical success when it was released, but basically a financial failure. And the plot is basically when a tornado rips through Kansas, Dorothy and her dog Toto are whisked away to a wonderful world of Oz, and she meets a bunch of funny characters walking down the yellow brick road to the Emerald
Everybody
City.
knows the plot to Oz.
Everyone knows the plot to The Wizard of Oz. Andrew has never seen this movie before. We made him do this.
Well, now I've seen it, but I had seen Return to Oz before I watched this one. There's like a lot of really good Wizard of Oz adaptations for some reason.
The actual author of it was very political, so I think a lot of the later adaptations lean into that. Return to Oz is like, much more political than the first one. And then, later adaptations like the book that Wicked is based off is also like very political, very dark, and very gross.
Everyone always just takes from the first book.
It's
like
true.
They don't talk about the Ozma of Oz, where a boy named Tip discovers he's really a woman named Ozma, and then becomes Ozma, and then falls in love with Dorothy. No one ever adapts that part. Fascinating thing that Andrew texted me while watching it was, for a film nearly 100 years old, there's no racism. There's nothing that makes you go icky. There's no effects that don't quite stand up, and the ones that do are part of the charm.
Racism. I feel like I'm missing something. There's got to be something racist in there, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's a heaping helping of ableism and the treatment on set, like, but yeah, you're very right. There are many pitfalls that it avoids.
So how old were you when you first watched it, Maggie?
Oh boy, probably 4 to 5 years old, very young. But yeah, and then watched it many times throughout my life.
Right. Same with me. Like, I pulled the old VHS out and just wore it out and like looked up everything about how they made it, how they did the tornado effect. I was like real like into the nuts and bolts of filmmaking at the time. So I was like, how did they turn that and do this? It is a seminal film for a lot of people, like even of our generation. I'm wondering if like, the generation younger than us have that too, or if it's like, we're the last one.
It is interesting. My partner's about 10 years older than me. And when they saw it, they had none of the like backstory, so they kind of are just like, okay, great. Like, but it is interesting that like 10 years later, like my mom is like, here are all the facts. And, here's all the things about Judy Garland. And it was like, here are the things that we know about The Wizard of Oz that, that we talk about today from its production.
A lot of things like that are strictly movie only have become wrote within the Wizard of Oz mythos. You can't make a Wizard of Oz movie without ruby slippers, not silver. They have to be ruby. And the Wicked Witch of the West has to be that shade of green now, because that was what she always was. She was never really green in the books. That was something like added for the movie, really. Then there's the other question I want to bring up that I've been in an argument with my friend Emily Clark about, whether or not this is a musical.
When I think of it, I honestly don't think of the songs besides, of course, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and a couple tunes when they're walking, but it's usually in transit when they're singing.
There's a lot of songs though, and you can't really take them out.
Compared to other musicals, the songs do less heavy lifting.
Many a New Day has just as much to do in Oklahoma as, say, If I Only Had a Brain does. It's just stating my purpose and what I want. This is basically all about I want songs, as opposed to something like Singing in the Rain, where it's like, gotta dance, and we dance for 25 minutes.
You could argue it's not a musical just by virtue of the medium. It's not a stage show.
I mean, you can argue that, but I'm saying the way that the songs function within this movie is the same way songs function in musicals to this day.
I think that there's a lot of arguments about what the first musical is, and I don't know if any of them are accurate.
I mean, you're a
Because-
believer like opera and all that still counts as
I mean,
musicals.
operetta is basically just music theater in a different language a lot of times. Do we not count it just because it's Italian? I mean,
I will not stand for anti-Italian.
yeah, anti-Italian. This is a little bit. It's a little iffy, a little problematic, if you ask me.
It's a traveling movie. So you're traveling to the different set pieces. You know, it's the Yellow Brick Road, it's, you know, the Oz Town. And each song does bring you to the next place. So in that regard, it is kind of, you know, like a journey musical in a sense.
It's a road musical.
A road musical. This was the first road musical. And you can put that on the book. I had recently watched it with the Dark Side of the Moon soundtrack.
Just smoked a doob and just like, oh, I'm letting go. I mean, this is becoming a tradition with the generations. Like your parents' generation was like the Pink Floyd, like, oh, if you sync it up, and our generation is more reevaluating and looking at it the film way and like how actors should and shouldn't be treated on film. As well, it has become kind of myth. Like Judy Garland is a mythical figure, more or less here, and just because of this movie in a lot of ways, like no one really feels this way about her other vaudevillian films the way they do about The Wizard of Oz.
Absolutely. And also with Judy being, you know, like a queer icon, like this is one of like the seminal works of like, you know, absolute over the rain. You know, there's so many things that had such a different relevance to us now that stem from this movie in particular.
Do you want to talk about production? I feel like you and I are going to nerd out about that for a bit, and I feel like Andrew will learn a bunch of stuff from that. We start with Richard Thorpe, who was the OG, and he was the one that nearly killed Buddy Epson and gave Judy Garland that terrible wig. Buddy Epson was cast as the Scarecrow originally. Then Ray Bolger was cast as Tin Man. He's like, I ain't playing no Tin Man. I want to be that Scarecrow. And Buddy Epson's, whatever, I don't care. I just want to be in the movie. And then that signed his own death warrant, basically. He gets all this aluminum powder in his face, inhales it into his lungs, nearly dies. And for that, they shut down. But the producers finally got to watch all the dailies and see what was being shot, and they didn't like it. And they were looking for a director, and who took over the pre-production duty was a man named George Cukor, who looked at everything and was like, all right, we got to get rid of that stupid wig, give her pigtails, take off all that makeup, make her look like a normal girl. She's a girl from Kansas. George Cukor makes all those choices, like, we're getting rid of that, we're hiring Jack Haley, and then Victor Fleming officially takes over and starts shooting. However, his buddy Clark Gable is out there shooting Gone with the Wind and is like, yo, I need my buddy Victor Fleming here. I don't care if he's shooting some kid's movie. He's coming here next week. And then King Vidor took over from there and shot all the Kansas scenes. So he shot Somewhere Over the Rainbow, The Tornado, all of that stuff. But Richard Thorpe was not only just a brazen, abusive, and not that great director by all means, he was also abusive to Judy Garland. She would be caught getting a case of the giggles for a shot, and he'd just go up and slap her and say, you're not going to do that. Whereas Victor Fleming is a much nicer, calmer presence.
Really is nightmare fuel, both within the movie and outside of it.
The film didn't make money on its first release. It took a bunch of re-releases for it to even make a profit. I think the re-releases are part of the reason why it became so ingrained in all of us. I can just imagine Mayor just like, Wizard of Oz, do it again. Again.
So was this actually the first color movie? I hear that. Is that actually true?
No way. Not even close. Like, color has existed all the way since the development of film. Like, they were doing color on film since the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera, silent film.
It might be just people see the black and white and they're like, what, it went into color? This must be the first time they've ever done that.
Wow. Yeah.
You can do that? There were moments that were legitimately scary. The tornado, for one, like being separated from your family, and the idea of that was terrifying. The hologram of the Wizard of Oz scared the shit out of 4-year-old me. Like, oh my God. I know this seems nothing compared to Return to Oz, but this was scary stuff back then.
Was anyone actually scared by the witch, though?
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting. And I also think that makes her kind of a really good villain, especially in the kids' movie, because something about her is almost like approachable, and she kind of melts, which is a very like passive way of being defeated.
The witch was scarier in Kansas.
Yes, Madame Gulch is like terrifying.
Yeah.
Went full Cruella de Vil, and I killed Sparky too. Let's talk about performances really quick and like how they are vaudeville performances and how big they are, but still they work. Judy Garland is giving like the most naturalistic performance that you can give in an MGM film. I think one of the more undersung, underpraised people in this is the gentleman that plays the wizard. He's very good at playing like 5 different characters and making an impression on each of them.
And also, yeah, and especially when we first meet him in his palm reader little hut thing.
Professor Marvel's crazy place outside. I'm looking at us now and realizing we have a Wizard of Oz amount of people. Maggie, I'm going to force you to cast all of us as the Wizard of Oz gang.
Okay. Absolutely,
Oh,
I can do
boy.
this. Andrew,
All right.
you are the cowardly lion.
I knew that was coming.
I know. I'm like, it's just too true to imagine. Jess, Scarecrow, Brianna, Tin Woman.
Very
And I
progressive.
guess Dorothy, because I've never been on this podcast before, so
Oh my gosh, you're right. Welcome to Oz. There was a lot of near misses of almost destroying this movie. They almost cut Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which means that one of the most iconic songs in all film history would have not existed. And then you've got like some very dated things that they almost put in, like the jitterbug sequence, where they just literally stop and do the jitterbug.
There's
There's
like
like
Jitterbug. I think that Wham song where they say Jitterbug.
jitterbug. Andrew, is there anything you want to say as a first timer to this, as the Wizard of Oz virgin?
I don't know. It's pretty much exactly what I expected it to be, and you kind of, like, I kind of already knew like everything about it going in, even though I had never seen it, because it's so ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous.
Everything references the Wizard of Oz. There's different adaptations of it. Somewhere Over the Rainbow is just a pop song, like that's been done by a ton of people.
One thing that surprises me, especially on rewatching, because I always forget it, is the makeover scene. Like I never think about it, and then suddenly
Oh yeah,
in Emerald City had a makeover for like a long time, and like
it's like a song number too, isn't it? Like, this is how we
Scrub
do it in
here,
Oz.
scrubs there. I mean, that's like the dream logic kind of stuff that lends to like this specific version's interpretation of this being a dream of Dorothy's.
Has the dream thing permeated the Wizard of Oz so much that the books are like almost ruined by it?
In fact, in the last book, literally, Ozma helps Dorothy uproot her family and her farmhouse to Oz so that Ozma and Dorothy could be lesbian best buds. The only one allowed in Ozma's bedchambers was Dorothy. What am I supposed to interpret by that? But it's also important to note that while this is the most ubiquitous, most popular, and most well-loved version of this is not the first film adaptation of the Wizard of Oz stories at all. This is like the 30th film adaptation of the Wizard of Oz stories. L. Frank Baum directed a good majority of them. They are insaney pants crazy. Like, they are horrifying nightmare fuel.
it also became popular, I think, because it was a stage play that would travel, for
Yes.
kids, and that's how kids really, like learned about the story and yada yada. Which I'm sure also those costumes were scary.
But you know what? I think we've talked long enough about like what we think right now. It's time to compare our thoughts to the critics when this film first came out. It's time for our favorite segment of the show. It's time for Breeviews.
By Russell Maloney of The New Yorker in 1939. Fantasy is still Walt Disney's undisputed domain. This was forcibly born in on me as I sat cringing before MGM's Technicolor production of The Wizard of Oz, which displays no grace of imagination, good taste, or ingenuity. I will rest my case against The Wizard of Oz on one line of dialogue, in which the Wicked Witch is trying to persuade Dorothy, the little girl from Kansas, to part with a pair of magic slippers. The Good Witch interrupts them, warning Dorothy not to give up the slippers, whereupon the Wicked Witch snarls, "You keep out of this." Well, there it is. Either you believe witches talk like that, or you don't. I don't. Since The Wizard of Oz is full of stuff as bad as that, or worse, I say it's a stinkeroo. I grant this one stinkeroo.
Well, there it is. Either you believe witches talk like that or you don't.
Because he doesn't believe witches talk like that.
Yeah,
What a
witches
witch
don't,
shamer?
witches don't say you keep out of this.
What does he expect a witch to say?
You and your little dog too did not like that line.
Hypothetically.
hypothetically.
Let's say
And al-
hypothetically, you have a
What?
movie with witches in it, and they say a line that I don't think they say. Well, it's obviously a stinker.
Okay, can I read some more experts from this really quick? He's like,
Can we get
Bert
this-
Lahr as the Cowardly
this guy-
Lion is funny, but out of place. If Bert Lahr belongs in the land of Oz, so does Mae West. What the fuck does that even mean? This is nothing against Lahr, Miss West, both of whom I dearly love.
It's so funny to have that be like your recorded for history, like your recorded opinion on Wizard of Oz.
This might be the most famous thing he's ever done. Like maybe the only thing he's known for is that he wrote a negative review of one of the most beloved movies of all time.
So we're going to dive into some songs right now. So let's just dive into the iconic one, which is strangely the I Want song and the opening number, which is Over the Rainbow. Maggie, was the first time you heard this song in the movie, in the context of the movie, or did you hear it somewhere before that?
I think I did, which I don't think I would not be surprised that a lot of people don't have that experience. Heard the song and was like, oh, it's from this movie. And I actually didn't hear any renditions of it until I think much later in life.
It's a very interesting way. This is brilliant songwriting for one. You think Kansas gray skies and the only color she really got is to see the rainbow. It works on 9 different levels, and on the final chant side of it, it's just an overall good song with a good emotional core. You need to figure out what she wants in a way that isn't oh, Toto, I just want to go and see the world. Her emotions need to sing in that moment. And that is what makes this a musical and not just a movie with songs.
Anyone who sings it afterward, that idea of just one day I will be somewhere that I'm not, is so human and so universal that it's been applied to so many people and situations.
And just hearing about how the songwriter, this is the last song he had to write for this movie. It was the only one that's I know where it needs to go, I just don't know what to do. And then he's like, I had the worst heartburn I ever had, and I had my wife drive me to the drugstore, told her to go in and get me the meds, and I sat there, pulled up a cocktail napkin, I'm like, I wrote down what would become Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I didn't have the lyrics. I just wrote the tune. Where's my medicine?
Where's my meds?
Doing his job at the last moment possible with heartburn.
All right, so let's just go into the Witch is Dead sequence, which is 9 songs in one, but this is also storytelling, explaining what happened, explaining the world and all that, all through song.
I love that the first thing that happens in Oz, in this wonderful, colorful world, is someone dies and everyone celebrates.
A horrible murder.
Yeah, especially when you're older, your brain kind of does kind of fills in a lot of the blanks. That it's
I mean, if she was as terrible as they say, maybe it was deserved.
I like the part especially when just the random munchkins just start introducing themselves, these different unions in Munchkin Land, hey, thanks for the murder.
Yeah,
it's a liberation. It wasn't a murder.
Who's your favorite Munchkin? Because there's so many variations, and everyone has to have the one they like the most.
I like the one who's he's upset about the murder in a way. He's like, "Are we sure? Are we positive she's dead?"
Mine is the coroner who's just yeah, I looked over her body. I got this certificate of death. She dead. No pulse in the ankle, I'll tell you that.
Oh, the ballet dancers.
Yes.
Okay. The Lullaby Lake, yes. Yeah, what is their job? We don't know. And they don't really explain it, but...
Well, they
what is the
produce
Lollipop
lollipops.
Guild's job?
They make lollipops. Importing and exporting of lollipops.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to mix the 3 If I Only Had a songs into one topic.
How much of this movie is just one song followed by We're Off to See the Wizard, and then the same song followed by We're Off to See the Wizard?
All of these songs I think are great, and I love how distinct they are from one another despite having the same thing. The Tin Man's little tick-tock noise, ba-dum bum. My only complaint is the lion doesn't have his own full version of it, which you didn't get into the concert version with Nathan Lane. I won't be scared of rabbits and all that.
As a kid, and especially when you're a young kid, you're very much into okay, numbers and and trying to figure out patterns of the world that everyone seems to know. So wait, he didn't get a full song? What? And you're it trips you up.
If I Were King of the Forest is the last song of the movie.
It's like they wrote half of a musical and then they just stopped.
But the lion needed 2 or
We
1
had
and a
to
half.
finish it strong with a very very pointless number about how the lion wants to be king of the forest. I kind of get the feeling that the people who made the movie really liked the lion more than any other character.
Well, Bert Lahr was like the biggest actor among them.
Once he's added in, he gets more screen time than anybody else. And then
Well, it can't be about the girl. What are you?
it's gotta be about the lion. He's the big name.
Yeah.
He's the big guy.
But because like he wants to be king and like he could be, but like
That
He's
Zack
not
Snyder?
strong
Is he
enough.
on our podcast?
Zack Snyder's Wizard of Oz. I can't. I
Oh
don't
god.
watch it. No, it's in color, and then they get to Oz, and it goes to black and white.
4x3. Wait, the movie's already in 4x3. Shit! Of course the lion is Jesus. He gave up everything.
and the Tin Man is Jesus. And
Dorothy's Jesus, and the Wizard of Oz is Jesus.
The lion sees the Tin Man and asks, "Do you bleed?" "So you will." What are our overall thoughts on The Wizard of Oz 3 hours later? And our cheese rating.
Thought it was really good. I mean, it's kind of what I expected, and we didn't really talk about it, but there's a lot of really, really good dancing. I Googled witch cheese just to see if there was anything, and I found red witch cheese, so I'm gonna go with that. Can I just change it green witch cheese? I'm just gonna change it to that. I don't even know if that's a thing.
overall thoughts. Yeah, I want to go back to what you said earlier, Jess, about how with each generation it seems like this same movie brings up different topics of conversation. Andrew knew the whole movie before seeing it, and that's kind of like, yeah, everyone knows when you're a kid, you'll remember one of those characters and feel really attached to them. As far as cheese rating, I think I want to go with something like mozzarella. It's so classic. It's in so many things and exactly what you'd expect. There are a lot of pieces of art that we enjoy today that wouldn't be here without The Wizard of Oz coming first. So,
Bree, what do you think of our discussion and your cheese rating on that?
This was a very fun discussion. I learned a lot about like a classic film that I haven't seen in a really long time. I think I'm going to give it a throwback childhood snack, which was Handy Snacks Premium Breadsticks and Cheese Dip.
Wizard of Oz is a classic, undisputed. I love it so much, and I just have this stupid amount of information about it in the back of my head, and I was very grateful that Maggie gave me the chance to like spit it out here for the world, and I got to like really laugh a lot, and we got to be positive while laughing, which is so rare. As for a cheese rating, I am going to give it this yellow brick road cheese that you can
what? Are you
do
kidding
at
me?
parties.
Whoa!
Don't tell the witch
Maggie,
that.
thank you for joining us. You are wonderful.
God, this was so fun. Thank you for letting me talk about Wizard of Oz. If you want to find me, I'm on Twitter, just my name, Maggie Mae Fish, and then my name as well on YouTube, where you can see some of my video essays about movies, and some of them which are musicals. I did do an episode on Cats.
I cannot believe I saw that on Christmas Eve. Jess, I hate you.
You did it for the podcast. You did it for the people, not for me.
I know. Fuck all you people.
Maggie, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
Man, there's no place like home. So I'll leave you all with that.
You know what? That is the best we can end this with. Thank you for joining us, Maggie. And we will see you guys next time on Musicals with Cheese.
Why do I go to the lengths that I would go if it's early in the morning and I ain't had a bit of sleep? Well, who else am I gonna be?
You're out of the woods, you're out of the dark, you're out of the night. Step into
Really,
the
he
sun,
ends with
step
that
into the light.
Jitterbug.
Who's that hiding in the treetop? It's that rascal, the jitterbug.
He actually knows it.
Gonna